And we should be live. Hello there, everyone.
It doesn't say we're live. Oh, yes, it's starting. There we go. Yay, we're live.
Hey, everyone. So
Yeah, I think if we
I'm hosting the stream again. So, yay.
Yeah, yeah, because my internet's being hot garbage lately. So, anyways, we've got some interesting things to talk about in just the last day as well. We have, let's see here, we have that shooting in Christchurch, which seems to have the strangest name for a church I've ever seen because Christchurch is all one word.
Christchurch is the town.
Christchurch is that's a still very silly name for a town because it's all one word.
yeah, it's pretty yeah. Anyway, there's also the court case ruling about how gun companies in the U.S. can now be held accountable for gun violence.
Sounds like a fun time for the whole family.
Yeah, well, anyway, I suppose we should just get into the first and most pressing story right now. I was considering making one of my news videos about it, but, yeah, the problem with talking about this is this was basically meant to be politicized. The shooting in Church Christ was, which I'm not even going to bother explaining that there was a shooting because everybody knows that at this point. Um, but basically, 49 people were shot dead in some mosque. I think 20 are also injured, and the shooter, a guy named Brenton Tarrant, originally he made a post to 4chan detailing that he was going to do it, and he live streamed the whole shooting. And the very first thing that I noticed is this is there are a lot of hokey details about the shooting, which I noticed right off the bat. Firstly, all the incredibly contradictory details inside of his manifesto, which just don't make any sense together. Like, specifically, he states that he hates conservatives, and his argument for why he hates conservatives is that they don't preserve any culture. The guy, by the way, identifies as an eco fascist, whatever that means. But also, he identifies with socialist beliefs as well. Um, it's worth noting, I think. He rants about capitalism in multiple different places, or what he calls capitalism. He's basically just a euphemism for free markets and the way he's using it. Or privatization. But, yeah, what he is. The reason I mentioned that is because that's essentially what I'm getting to, which is he hates conservatives, but he attempts to say that he was inspired by Candace Owens and Donald Trump. One of them's a black conservative, the other is the U.S., which he also states that he hates the U.S. government because they, quote, side against ethno nationalist movements. Specifically, the one that he cites is the Kosovo Civil War.
One weird thing is why isn't Ozzy obsessed with just American politics? Like that's his reason.
Yeah, he talks an inordinate amount about American politics, which is
pretty unusual.
Yeah, considering how obsessed he was with Australia and New Zealand and keeping the invaders out of his homeland, as he put it.
I mean, do Australians consider themselves kin with Americans?
No.
Yeah.
I don't speak to very many Australians, granted, but that just it does strike me as incredibly unusual. I mean, I understand that U.S. politics and foreign policy is incredibly consequential in world affairs, but I can't imagine that people in Spain are terribly concerned about the goings on in Latvia.
the closest thing they
And they're
have to
not. Plus, the U.S. government, really, their foreign policy is not guided by any ideology. It's guided by what, at that time, materially benefits the U.S. government the most. That's why they've also helped ethno-nationalist regimes create puppet states. Ukraine being probably the best example in 2015. They funded an ethno-nationalist revolutionary group to overthrow the Ukrainian government and turned them into basically a puppet state, which they used to provoke the Russians.
And
I remember.
basically, there's a proxy war going on in Ukraine. Except it's not really a proxy war. It's one group has a proxy, the other one is it's just Russia.
But
Why this?
anyway, yeah, I've noticed quite a few bizarre things about the shooting. Well, first of all, I actually, somebody linked the post at, like, right after it was made in the Discord server, and I actually managed to catch the video while it was live on Facebook, the stream. And one thing that I noticed right off the bat is this looks like a guy who is combat trained. He seems to be, yeah, he seems to, be controlling the building in a almost tactical fashion.
Basically, someone who knows what they're doing and almost certainly has a military background, if not a paramilitary background.
He
So
was
that's
trained
something
by
that I'm going to be
somebody.
surprised. That's something we're going to have to look for in mainstream media, whether or not they'll actually figure out where the hell he came from.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed is that the media simply refuses to identify him and or even show his face, which that's something I find very interesting. Like they claim that's what he wanted in his manifesto. He wanted visibility. No, he wanted people to read the manifesto, and he wanted people to start politicizing it like this, like they're doing.
Which is absolutely hilarious because when it comes to literally every other mass shooting, the first thing that they do is put the person's name and face front and center. And now suddenly, with this one person who doesn't seem to care about name recognition, infamy, or any of the other things that motivate these other mass shooters, they're suddenly very concerned about not getting his face and name shown.
Dude, I was seeing
No,
people do that on Twitter.
he
Like,
explicitly
what?
states he explicitly states that no, he doesn't, like, he in his little Q&A section he created in the manifesto. There's a section which reads, "Didn't you just make white nationalism look bad? No, in a few months everyone will have forgotten who I am." That's his response, but they'll remember the attack. He
Well,
basically explicitly says, "Yeah, this isn't. I don't care. I just care about that people remember that this happened." But yeah, the reason what I was getting at is I don't believe that he consistently believed anything that he wrote in that manifesto, because it's impossible to believe everything that he wrote because they're self-contradictory beliefs. But I think that the motivation genuinely was that he wanted to start a civil war, and that he wanted to create political conflicts within, Western governments, as people like Chantards would put it, because yeah, he pretty much that's the only consistent theme in all of his beliefs, is that they're controversial figures, they're controversial things to do and controversial things to believe, which pretty much everybody can use to attack their political opponents with.
uh,
And one thing, I want to point out something else real quick, and that is in February 2018, parents of an autistic, I want to say young adult, caught the FBI in grooming their son to be a right-wing terrorist. And I'm looking at the article right now, and this is not unusual. This is something that's been done numerous times. Like in 80 to 90% of cases where the FBI, CIA, or some other intelligence agency stops a terror attack, it was typically because the FBI or government agents would basically go out of the way to train them, indoctrinate them, feed them information, and then as they were just about to commit an attack, after grooming them into doing it from the very beginning, they decide to spring into action. It's like, look at this terrorist we caught, when the reply should be, look at this terrorist that you actually created. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy turned out to have been groomed by U.S. intelligence specifically to do this exact thing. And
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't the FBI do that, though? Why wouldn't they do that? It makes them look effective. And look, we're catching terrorists, you guys. We're the good guys. You need us. And then they let a few slip or a few happen to keep the fear of terror alive. It's just a way to get people relying on the state.
Yeah, as I was mentioning here, I've mentioned in the last few months that there are propaganda efforts leading up into the next few years, while they're collapsing, are going to get more and more just insane to think about the motivations behind them, and this is probably a great example of that. It's just absolutely nuts, this situation. There's only one consistent thing about this whole incident, and that's why I think it's important. You need to look at the motivations, and if the motivations contradict the stated intentions, well, not the if the stated intentions contradict the actual results to such an extent that the stated intentions no longer make any sense, then I think it's important to toss out the stated intentions, and this is a great example of exactly why that's the case.
But no, what they're doing is they're just going to keep doing these things. Most people are just going to say guns are bad. Government saves us. We need more government. We need less guns. So they're going to keep doing this because most people are not going to look into it. They're just going to say, oh, people die. We need government to save us. Get rid of guns. That's what most people are going to do. You watch.
Dude,
this is going to happen again in a few months.
Well,
and it'll be another cycle.
He also mentions in his manifesto he's been using cryptocurrency to travel the world. As noted already, he mentions that he's anti-capitalist, quote unquote, and that he oh, filthy left, and that he thinks that quote unquote workers should own the means of production. He hates conservatives. He attacks Marxists. He's basically just trying to get everybody pissed off, and that's the one consistent theme here, and that's why I haven't made a video about it like I initially planned on, because that's really the only point of this.
It's just chaos.
Yeah, there's not really anything to say about it, but as I've noted already, we've been noticing some various inconsistencies. Yeah, there's the uniform way in which all the mainstream media outlets seem to talk about it. One example being that they're not showing his face or saying his name, but also in little phrases that they use, like, and the way in which they show things, like, they'll say, we watched the video, but we're not going to play the video here. Well, of course they're not going to play the video, it's a shooting, but, yeah, the way they describe it's the same across every outlet. He gets into his car and he starts playing some music. Doesn't mention the name of the song, which, by the way, it's Serbia Strong. It's a Serbian propaganda music video. It's a meme online as well, and they don't mention the significance of that song, which is that it was a propaganda song about the Serbian Civil War. But yeah, so that's one example, but Yeah, my point is that it's all uniform across every media outlet. This guy's social media accounts, well, they're all suspended now. I hope somebody screenshotted everything that was there because I'm pretty sure that they got removed because something was on there, like they fucked up somehow, and they didn't want people to notice it. But yeah, all those accounts were only like a month old. So this guy's entire social media, he's only been on for like a month.
Wow.
Like so basically there's nothing about him which is older than a month. And yeah, and something which we were talking about before the stream started, somebody had apparently pointed out, is that his entire manifesto and the original 4chan post were written in American English. Why would...
That was filthy.
Yeah,
Oh, hi.
and that... Hey,
Why?
where'd you go, Filthy?
Welcome back.
My internet went down because reasons.
That's what I thought.
Ha! They must think you're hosting the stream.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry motherfuckers, I'm hosting the stream and I have a VPN, so good luck trying to take it down.
well, that's funny because I've had a VPN on. It doesn't seem to be working. I think it's just my internet is absolutely terrible.
I assume it is.
Fair enough. But
no, to these people, to mainstream people, the only thing that matters is what gun did he use? That's what most people only care about. They care about nothing else.
Alright, but as
So this is another thing that's really raised a red flag for me. No, the pun is intended, and that is he used an AR-15, which is arguably the most demonized firearm in our modern era. You don't use that to commit a mass shooting unless you're specifically trying to get that gun banned.
I mean, the
Right,
AR-15
anyway,
itself
the point that I was getting to is this guy, if you look at all of his social media accounts, you look at the 4chan post, you read the manifesto, he talks consistently. I suppose this is the other point, which is consistent other than just seeming to try and want to start politicization chaos as widespread as he possibly could, which is that he's a proud Australian. That's the thing that he's the most proud of, and yet all of his posts are written in American English, including his manifesto, which was supposed to be what he left behind for everyone to read.
Well, that's inconsistent because, like, Australians, because I have friends from Australia who say our English is improper and it's a disgrace to really speak that way or write in that way.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
pretty much
that's...
an offense.
Yeah, proud, the actual, like, basically the Australian equivalent of the Murica kind of guys. I don't know what they would call themselves, the super Aussies. Yeah, they do not like American English at all. That is, I don't know. I suppose they kind of look at our English the way that, you know, American civic nationalists would make fun of British people for their history of tea.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I mean, this is just anecdotal, but Australians have generally been very rude to me for being American. It's something that's looked down upon.
You know who would, though? You know who would write, though, in English? Our English, American English? In my opinion, a sleeper agent.
Or the FBI.
Yeah, or if the manifesto wasn't even written by him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was an FBI water-soluble cracker.
So that's one thing. I mean, there's not... I'm sure more is gonna come out because... I mean, obviously they fucked up really badly because, yeah, they're deleting everything. They're trying to make it now so you can't... Like, they're basically taking down the manifesto on every, like, centralized site where it's hosted. So, I mean, obviously, you know, somebody realized we left something in here where we screwed up really badly. Now, only time will tell if the English, the way in which he wrote was the big mistake. But I think that's probably the biggest indicator right now that something's wrong. Aside from how the media is covering it, the details of the shooting, the shooter's stated intentions. Like, as I've pointed out, he necessarily cannot believe what he wrote.
Everything.
So if he's not ideologically motivated to try and start a civil war, what's motivating him to try and start a civil war?
Creating a meme. I mean, they caught him, so they caught him and 3 other people. We don't know who the 3 other people are,
That's the
but
other thing. Who are the other people? I mean, they kind of fucked themselves there, because if they're going to if that's going to be the only thing that happened, which is what was recorded on camera, and they ended up carrying out attacks across the city who are supposedly not even connected with this guy, because this guy makes it very clear that he was just acting alone in his manifesto. So who are these 3 other people?
also, how many? I didn't see the live stream, so how many mosques did he attack?
2 apparently.
Yeah.
As far as I.
And how many were shown in the live stream? Like, did he leave one mosque and go to another?
Well,
I don't know.
he shoots up one mosque, and then, like, while he's driving down the street, he starts firing at another building. So I think that could have been the second mosque.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
We might want to Google check, look that up on Google Maps to double check that, though, because that might also be one of the inconsistencies.
What if he fired into, I don't know, some indie temple, and it's being called a mosque, or even just like a butcher shop?
Dude, like, this is probably not as important as what we're talking about, but I just hated how not even within the first 24 hours, not even when the body count was actually released, people were already advocating for gun control. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, every shooting, it gets the span in which someone starts advocating for gun control just gets much shorter and shorter.
They were advocating for gun control minutes after the Parkland false flag shooting. Minutes. They had CNN on the scene like 30 minutes after the shooting ended.
Oh yeah, the shooting wasn't even done by the time they were advocating for gun control. After that one.
Well, the only good thing that came out of the whole Parkland shooting was the country finally admit cops are not here to defend and serve, but just to basically be totalitarian and ruin your life.
They're an occupying hostile force. That's really all there is to it.
They're like a shitty version of the mob. It's at least the mob protects you.
Speaking of guns, should we get into that court ruling?
Yeah, I think so.
Sure, I think
But I wanted to mention something
the
about
other
this
day,
first.
the Australian shooting, not the Australian, but the New Zealand shooting. I think we've driven that into the ground at this point. There's going to be more details which come out about it, because yeah, as the American English thing which we pointed out, that was originally noted by somebody on 4chan. So yeah, weaponized autism's all over this. If there's something here, it's going to be found.
yeah. So the court case, and the funny thing is, this happened to be released on the day of the shooting. I don't know anything about that, but that just seems kind of fishy right there. But anyway, the court case, this was a case going on for years after the Sandy Hook, and the court ruled that gun companies like Remington can be held accountable for gun violence.
Which, of course, is done not with any actual observance of the quote-unquote law, but simply done as a backdoor to gun control, in the sense that they're going to try to chase gun manufacturers out of business, because now they can be held accountable for crimes that had absolutely nothing to do with the company itself. I used this metaphor earlier. It's like, imagine if you're driving a Honda Civic and you follow your GPS. GPS says turn left. So what you do is you make a sharp turn 90 degrees to the left into a reservoir. Can you sue Honda for you being a terrible driver?
This isn't even really about gun control. I think that this is also serving a similar purpose to the New Zealand shooting. I think that this is the precedent being set for people being blamed for what their audience does. Media personalities being blamed for something that their audience does, and now they're going to start having people like this Australian shooting. God damn it, I keep saying Australian shooting, but you know what I mean. Um, they're going to have government agents like that guy. I don't know if he is yet, but I mean, people like that who are government agents start doing things, and then they're going to claim that they were inspired by media personalities on the internet.
Fucking subscribe to PewDiePie before shooting up a mosque.
I like, I genuinely, I'm pretty sure I'm terrible, but I can't help but think that's fucking hilarious. Like, I know damn well what he's doing, and I know, you know, why that was done, but I can't help but think that's funny. Subscribe to PewDiePie.
When I heard that, I was just like, no fucking way. I thought I saw it all. Like, I joked, like, in the past, like, if just, like, a Jew decided to shoot up, like, a church or something, they said Happy Hanukkah, the last thing I would think of is for someone to say, subscribe to PewDiePie. Like, next thing you know, it's going to be, like, all of Markiplier's videos.
Subscribe to PewDiePie, pulls out gun and starts shooting.
I wonder.
Unsubscribe from T. Martin.
Does that mean that they're going to make it like people could sue Final Fantasy because I just started chopping people up with a sword? If it wasn't for the video game, I wouldn't have learned sword combat.
Yeah,
We better sue the video games.
That's my point. But this is completely the ultimate insult to any semblance of a justice system, which, because that's the point of a justice system, which I've noted in my video Justice Without a State. Well, not a justice system, but just justice in general, which is that the point of arbitration is to have the victim compensated at the criminal's expense. So essentially, this is just a form of collective punishment. This is criminalizing parties which have absolutely nothing to do with the crime, and holding them criminally liable for something. And the ruling, this could be and as we've seen, this could happen in cases where there aren't even victims, you know, considering that most quote unquote criminals are people who haven't even directly victimized someone in today's state society.
You ever been to a school or you just like you're in school, and then some kid speaks out in class and is otherwise obnoxious? So what happens is that the teacher punishes the whole class?
Oh my goodness.
This isn't even that. This is like you saying something in class the teacher doesn't like, and then the teacher punishing somebody else.
Except that everybody else is literally the entire school. And chances are the original person who did it gets away scot-free. But that's probably because they were set up by the teachers specifically to do that.
No, what they're trying to do is they say, okay, we're not going to be able to ban guns because in Hawaii they're already trying to get the Second Amendment repealed. So like, hey, here's a great idea. If we can scare all the gun manufacturers away, then we don't have to ban guns because they won't make any new ones.
Dude,
Fortunately, we're already at the point where everybody can become their own gun manufacturer.
Yeah, all that's going to do is further decentralize the production of guns. So,
well, New Jersey already ruled that having the 3D printed models for guns is not protected speech.
It's not going to stop people from doing it. Yeah, that's like they seem to be, you know, it's a bit too late to be pulling that one. They seem to be playing, you know, on a planned schedule. Like they have this probably all planned out, but they didn't take into consideration decentralized encrypted ledgers and innovations like 3D printers, which allow people to become their own manufacturers. So yeah, they're just playing by this rule book that was written like probably over 100 years ago for how the transition period between the old state and the new state after its collapse due to fiat being unsustainable would work out, not taking into consideration all these new innovations which completely undermine that rule book. Not like there's anything they could do about it anyway.
In simple terms, for government drones, I'm an anarchist. Your laws don't apply to me.
Pretty much. Also, by the way, Heartless Soy Boy gave us a super chat for $4.99. He says, "When I saw the footage, I thought it was fake because I couldn't see blood."
No, there's blood in the footage. If you look closely, you can see it.
I mean, shooting people is not going to be as dramatic as it is in video games or in movies. Like, it's
Also,
fairly subdued.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, it's not
as he's walking out of the mosque, some of the first people that he shot, there's a pool of blood. There's pools of blood next to him, like the guy right at the door. Like by the time he's done and walking out, there's just a big pool of it next to him.
Yeah, simple misconception most people have on guns is like, oh, I shoot someone with a bigger caliber, they'll bleed quicker and they'll faint. That's not how it really works. It's not blood loss that puts down someone. It's shock impact and a lot of other things. But if you're hoping for blood loss, when you shoot someone with a gun, it's not likely to what takes them out. It's other factors.
The fucking AR-15, like, that's just a sporting rifle. Like, it's meant for a small game, and yet people make it out to be this dangerous weapon.
Well, it's actually got the AR-15 is incredibly versatile, and there's many variations across many manufacturers. Like, you can find an AR-15 for very small calibers and calibers up to 46.
That's it. Like, most crime is committed with handguns.
The overwhelming majority of crime is committed with handguns. You're more likely to be killed by
You're actually more likely to die from a police officer than a mass shooter.
Actually, you're more likely to be killed by a bolt of lightning than a mass shooter. And in fact, you're more likely to be killed by a bolt of lightning while holding the winning Mega Millions lottery tickets than you are to be killed by a quote-unquote right-wing mass shooter.
In fact, you're more likely to be killed on the street by someone carrying a 9mm than by an AR-15. That's actual fact.
Usually the person carrying the overwhelming majority of the people who are going to kill you wielding a 9mm are going to be police.
I still want an AR-15. Still do.
Well, you can get one.
I know.
I'm just saying that the most people have been shot by guns a year are 9mm. More people are shot by 9mm than any other round. And police kill more people than mass shooters a year. But no one talks about police. Oh no, they're the good guys. They would never shoot anyone without being interrogated against, or would never shoot someone in the back, or shoot someone who's running, or shoot someone who has their hands up. Oh no, police never do that.
Here's a fun fact. Out of the 1.6K people that die on school campuses each year, only about 100 of them are actually shot, like on a campus, or not on campus, but just it's actually they die on campus. So you're not even likely to die from a school shooting either.
Remember, lads? Subscribe.
I don't know.
You're more likely
also,
to die on campus than on campus. That's what I meant to say.
Damn it, you guys keep talking over it.
Remember, lads? Subscribe to PewDiePie.
No, but honestly, more cars kill people on motorcycles a year than mass shooters shoot people. So stop driving those cars, because I ride a motorcycle and I don't want to die.
More people are killed by swimming pools than guns in general.
More people are killed in plane crashes a year than guns. But anyway, what did Black Spurs do?
Black Spurs corrected us, saying that police use 40 caliber Smith & Wesson rounds, not 9mm.
You know, that's an interesting point, actually. I wonder how much police actually contribute to that gun violence rate that people keep throwing around.
Yeah, we went over that like a couple months back. at the time, which I fucking can't remember. I think
It was 7,000
it was
reported.
it was like September of last year, and by that time, like 1,800 people had been killed by police. Even according to the state, people were murdered by police. So that's like I would have to get the actual number of people who were shot like at the end of 2018, but
People make
You're
a
not
big
going to get
deal
the
out of
actual
like
number.
yeah,
people make
I
a big
guarantee they hide it.
and Black Spruce is being helpful again and giving us some numbers. And people make a big deal, and rightfully so, that basketball Americans, who make up 17% of the population, commit like 60% of the crime. Well, here police make up 0.2% of the population and contribute to 10% of homicides.
Damn. Do you think
Jeez.
they're intentionally using them to inflate that rate so that they can push for gun control harder?
no, I think
I
that,
actually don't. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think
I think it's just police are trained to be as brutal and psychotic as possible, if only because they're meant to value their own lives at the expense of everyone else's. So if they see that there's a possibility that they might be harmed, even by an 8-pound chihuahua, they are trained to take whatever force is necessary, and the courts will, of course, protect them, which only gives them an even greater moral hazard.
no, but as we've also gone over on the stream before, cops are quite literally incentivized to shoot people because they get overtime pay for the reports that they have to write after doing it. So, no,
I'm still waiting for my shooting at a gun show.
Hold on, I think that it's incidental, that police happen to be shooting people. Like, no, I think to be clear, I think that it's directly caused by the state and the incentives that the state creates, and the state holding police at a different legal standard than quote unquote civilians. But no, I don't think that the state is doing this for the intention of trying to make arguments for gun control, because, of course, as has been rightly pointed out numerous times, in order for gun control to be enacted, police have to use guns to deprive people of their arms. So, and on top of that, gun control, the arguments for gun control and gun control advocates, they seem to be very fond of police, and they tend to center their idea around that very heavily, that police should be the people, the only people protecting everybody else, quote unquote protecting, but that's just that's the way they present it. So
We need more. We need more gun regulations so that white cops have an easier time killing the basketball Americans. I just want to say that on Tom Hartman's stream one day.
I mean, I don't see how you can disagree with that. I mean, we definitely need to fund Planned Parenthood because we agree with Margaret Sanger's vision in order to exterminate the basketball Americans.
Basketball Americans.
Well, I mean, they've even got right-wingers pushing for gun control now. Like Ben Shapiro was saying, I'm okay with gun control of people with mental illness, even though 10% of the American population has mental illness. And also mentally ill people do not commit any more crime than non-mentally ill people, except that they're 10 times more likely to be victims. But yeah, let's let the victims be killed more likely.
And also, the state is the sole decider on who is or isn't mentally ill in that situation. And that reminds me, since Black Spruce has been talking in chat recently, the other day he was showing around, like, he blurred out his personal information, but in my Discord server, he was sharing around personal court documents, which, for those who...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's having a dispute with the Canadian government, apparently. He was posting a bunch of edgy shit on social media, and apparently the government has found that grounds to issue a public safety warrant, as they refer to it in Canada, which is basically their equivalent of red flag laws, and make it so he can't legally own guns anymore. But on like page 400 out of 900 of the court documents, it states that they think he's mentally ill because he's posting certain certain memes on social media which carry certain fringe political ideologies, as they word it. So having fringe political ideologies is a sign of a mental illness. I'm dead serious.
Jesus.
Actually, they can consider anarchism a mental illness. They can consider it oppositional defiant disorder because it has all the same qualifications as anarchist. Doesn't trust authority, doesn't want to submit to authority, is more rebellious, more willing to be independent. Everything on opposition defiant disorder explains anarchism completely. So anarchism's a mental disorder now.
What's implied there is that they can declare you mentally ill on the basis of disagreeing with you.
That's actually the sole purpose of it. I mean, I mentioned several times now that in Soviet Union they created something called sluggish schizophrenia. I can't pronounce sluggish, where it is like the onset of schizophrenia, and you need to be treated for it to protect you. But in fact, it was just a pretense for putting you in a mental asylum indefinitely. Here, they're just going to say that, yes, you have this mental illness. Maybe you have one of the other made-up mental illnesses that people have commonly nowadays, like anxiety. Anyone who is anxious frequently for whatever reason, they are mentally ill and thus unfit to own a gun. And more importantly, if they can figure out like whatever it is that they wanted about you, they'll come up with whatever excuse they can think of in order to justify taking your property away, which... Listen, conservatives, I know that there are some minarchists and conservatives who watch this. Listen very closely. The Second Amendment does not protect your right to own guns. Gun rights are property rights, and property rights are personal rights.
They're natural.
They're natural rights.
In fact, California has now said that people who are transgender cannot own guns because it's considered a mental illness. Yet, the thing is, how many transgender people get murdered for being trans? Shouldn't they be the ones with more guns? Shouldn't people who are more likely to be targeted have more guns? Oh, why were they murdered? Oh, I don't know, maybe they didn't have a fucking gun. Well, why did they have a gun? Oh, let me think about that, because you wouldn't give it to them. I was at my gun safety course, right? Because I go to a lot of gun training courses. The guy said a woman in California who was beat and raped and had multiple text messages of her boyfriend saying he's going to rape and kill her. California denied her a gun, saying it's not a good enough reason. This is coming to all other countries, these legislative laws. People in California have a thing called blocking out, where they come to other states to push their agenda. This is what's coming.
Yeah, so what you have to do is if you're under the illusion that you can protect any sort of right that you have through the legislative process, as I've explained, in ad nauseum before, no, you cannot. The state's agenda is purely whatever is convenient for it at that time, and what's convenient for it is decided by materialistic circumstances. How much control it has to have over the markets in order to sustain enough resources to keep itself stable for the time being. They don't necessarily care about social issues for more than propaganda purposes, but there's a coming market collapse. They know it. They've likely been planning for it, and they know damn well that they don't want to have an armed population when that happens. So they're going to try and disarm you, and when that happens, they're going to attempt to declare martial law.
Like, I just want to say that the whole point of government, or the main goal of government, no matter which government it is, whether it's a social democracy, an anarchist government, all they want is power, and you should be prepared for when they actually try to grab hold of it.
Like, even if you have a gun, if it's, like, quote-unquote legally owned, background checks are just a de facto gun registry. So you might want to, get rid of that gun and exchange it for one off the black market. Or you may just...
Or if you live in a state with gun shows,
Yeah,
with gun show loopholes.
Hold on. Or you just may want to make your own guns and hide them, because once this actually happens, and once they actually start confiscating guns, they're gonna come to your house and they're gonna confiscate your guns. That's pretty clear. The only way you can actually be a gun owner and exercise your right to be a gun owner at this point and at any other point in history is to do it unlawfully.
Private cells. That's where you go. Private cells and small gun shows, not large ones, small ones where there's no checks. Trade guns. Don't have guns you bought with a registered number. Trade them with people and everything. It'll lose the trace. Don't be stupid. If you don't think that gun control is where you're at because, oh, my conservatives live here, look at what happened in Florida after the Parkland shooting. Multiple conservatives were pushing for all guns to be 21 and older, including Rubio, who's supposed to be a champion on the Second Amendment. Conservatives are going to cuck out on guns too. If you don't believe me, you're a fool.
You don't even get me started about Trump. Oh, let's take their guns first and do due process second. That's actually
Let's ban the bump stocks.
He put it. Oh yeah, and that's the other hilarious thing. The whole bump stock situation. Trump bans the bump stocks and all the controlled opposition alternative media. Oh, well, that's a good thing. Who needs bump stocks anyway?
Endorsed by the NRA, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The NRA has basically been a supporter for every gun control measure that's been going on for like the last 80 years.
Yeah, conservatives. I'm okay with licking the shit-coated jackboots as long as the person wearing it is someone who wants to own the libs.
Dude, the worst, one of the dumbest arguments I've ever seen for gun control, and this was like something that Sam Setter was talking about, and what he was saying that is he was criticizing Ben Shapiro for pointing out, hey, you shouldn't be including suicide statistics in your numbers, and Sam Setter is like, well, I can because suicide is a violent act, and it's like, well, for one thing, if that is the case, if suicide is something you're worried about, why isn't that the biggest point in every debate?
You're either saying the point of those statistics are crime statistics. Either he's saying that suicide should be a crime, or he's saying that suicide is victimizing somebody.
Well, suicide is a crime because it's destruction of government property.
Like fucking Sam Setter, that stupid cracker-ass dumbass.
Cracker?
Well, he is. I mean, he's like a pretty washed-out cracker.
He's like California white, Southern California white.
You go figure. Like, my goodness. I also still remember the one argument that I saw, like, when the Vegas shooting happened. Like, some person was like, well, a gun wouldn't have helped someone who was 20 stories high. And I'm just thinking, so does that mean we're not allowed to have locks on our doors because the robber broke in through the window? That's pretty fucking stupid.
Oh, there's stuff about that Vegas shooting, too, that's way off. First off, the rounds per minute and the sound that gun made did not sound like an AR-15.
Yeah,
I own an AR-15.
Yeah, they dropped that one really quickly because, like, within the day it happened, there were people pointing out so many inconsistencies that even the mainstream media outlets had to back away from it.
Didn't he like fire way more rounds than would exist in an AR-15 magazine?
The RPM, the only gun which matched that was it's not an M60, but it's a similar model of gun to that. It's basically a it's one of those guns that would have been outlawed in that Assault Firearms Act, signed in '93, I think.
That sounded more like a SCAR 16.
It was not a Scar 16. Like I know the gun. I just can't think of the name right now.
Yep.
Anyways, I think we should move on to the last story, which is that the White. This is the title of the video. The White House wants war with Russia.
Oh boy.
Someone was actually asking about that earlier in the stream. It was just like, no, Trump doesn't want a war with Russia.
Oh yeah, he does, because as it turns out, Mike Pence went to the German government and asked the German government to provoke the Russian Navy.
Basically, what happened is that Mike Pence asked the Germans to send 2 ships through. I forgot the name of the strait, but it's just off the coast of Crimea, and the whole point is that like the whole Black Sea is under the control of the Russians, and this would be seen as a huge provocation. And the German government actually turned it down because, according to Merkel, it didn't go far enough.
Yeah, so it's not just that the German government was against the U.S.'s provocations. No, it's they wanted more provocation.
Pretty much. And what's even funnier is that before they went to the Germans, they apparently went to the French. And to their credit, they actually said like, "No, why would we do this? This is stupid."
So
but apparently the Germans are completely okay with it.
So what I think is very important about this is it confirms something that I've been saying a long time, which is that there is no deep state division. It's all just the government. And this is a great example of that. CNN and these mainstream media outlets, like the ones that aren't pretending to be alternative media, but are actually just controlled opposition, like Fox or Breitbart. No, the mainstream outlets are talking about Russiagate, and they're being hysterical about the Russians to give the impression that it's one that's provocation or hostility towards the Russians, and the Western media is entirely one-sided. But I mean, as I've rightly pointed out, all of the media outlets, the bigger ones, are controlled by the CIA through a program known as Operation Mockingbird, or the FBI through COINTELPRO. So basically all of them are having their script written by the exact same people, which is the executive branch of the United States government. Because if it's written by either the FBI or the CIA, they take their marching orders from the executive branch. So ultimately, it's coming from whoever is the executive branch of the U.S. government, and yeah, it's being framed as an anti-Trump narrative, the Russian hostility. But yeah, as it turns out, Trump, Mike Pence specifically, is engaging in the same sort of anti-Russia provocation.
I still think that the reason I still not clear on why the United States government is so dead set on Russia-phobia.
Well,
other than that's a threat to the petrodollar.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, that's basically it. That's the same reason that Europe is also so hostile to it. That's the same reason that NATO has strategically surrounded Russia. It is entirely because Russia threatens the OPEC cartel of cartelization of the oil markets.
It just strikes me, why not be provocative to China?
Well, they are being provocative to China as well. Have you seen recently that Russia's the U.S. government is essentially like they're over there trying to provoke India to start a war with China?
Yes.
Yeah, so no, they are being provocative to China as well.
They just tried to make the China narrative separate from the Russia narrative.
China #1.
It's all very strange, and kind of childish what the United States government is doing as well. You're a little hatchling, and you have your brother or your sister putting their finger like just half an inch from your forehead, and it's like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. And then it gets annoying, and then you swat it away, and then they run to their parents like, mommy, he hit me.
Yeah,
That's
it's incredibly annoying.
And that's pretty much exactly what's going on. It's been going on for a while now. It's actually part of the statist playbook, where they create all these ridiculous provocations that are fairly petty, will be ignored largely by history, and are attempting to spark historical events. It's what the British Empire and France was doing to Germany before World War One, and it's what we're doing to Russia right now. We're creating all sorts of we're not touching you events that will essentially force Russia to retaliate.
Yeah, these provocations, but this is especially important to take note of right now, that there is controlled opposition within the media, and that the deep state doesn't actually exist. Because I've seen within like the last 2.5 weeks or so that I think at least we may be having an influence on the alternative media circles, specifically you and I, Filthy, because of our dialectical approach to the state's intentions and what motivates media propaganda, the sort of simulacra style interpretation of their motivations behind their actions. Because, yeah, I've seen this really bizarre propaganda start to pop up, like this narrative, like they're starting to talk about Operation Mockingbird a bit more often in the media, and they're starting to talk about CIA control. Like I even heard Tucker Carlson the other day refer to CNN as state media.
Which is kind of ironic.
But
I mean, we were
maybe-
talking about this before. He's clearly trying to deflect attention away from the fact that he himself is also state media.
Yeah, and that's what I think is beginning to happen. They've realized that people are becoming aware of the state's influence over the general media, so they're trying to create this artificial distinction between outlets like CNN and Fox, kind of like they were before. But that's what they're going to be saying. Oh, Operation Mockingbird. Yeah, that's a thing, but it only applies to these mainstream outlets. All of you disenfranchised people, you could still trust Fox News and Breitbart and Infowars. This is state approved counter narrative propaganda.
And that's exactly what they think too.
It's unfortunate because a lot of people actually buy that they're not controlled opposition. They actually think they're genuine.
Yeah, I mean, are you fucking kidding me? Tucker Carlson worked for MSNBC, like back in the early 2000s. So, I mean, this is a guy who has a long history being on the forefront of the media's narratives throughout the early 2000s, for the Iraq War and the 9/11 Truth Movement and all this stuff that happened at the time. So this guy is, like, by the book, a propagandist.
Now, what's hilarious to me right now is that, like, in 2016, a little bit in 2017, Tucker Carlson was extremely popular among the Trumpies. Because, like, oh, he's so good, he owns the libs, you can't cuck the tuck. And then it turns out that tuck was cucked by a bunch of ANCAP furries.
Yeah, I mean, now it's becoming more and more obvious by the day, because everything that he says is essential. It's just like any other media shill. You need the state. You're dependent on the state. Things can only change if you bow down to the state. Just vote for political change. Please stop being disenfranchised.
I mean, I kind of noticed it when I would watch him, that he would always, whenever he disagreed with anyone or anything, he would always label it as a threat to our democracy. Oh, liberals, they're only wrong because they're a threat to our democracy. My democracy. I mean,
Like, I never understood how conservatives can think that they're the party of freedom. being like I've been libertarian pretty much my whole life, from libertarian to minarchist on to anarchist. So I've never understood the conservative narrative.
The conservative narrative is that there are certain components of our government that are absolutely necessary to society. However, the current government that we have today is in excess of what is necessary, and those parts need to be trimmed off, sort of like pruning a bush.
They're the equivalent
they're like minarchists, except minarchists, unlike minarchists, quote unquote minarchists. But when I say minarchists, I'm talking about like objectivists and the Nozick kind of guys. But no, Republicans, they pretend to be like them, except what you'll notice is that their definition of what's necessary for the government to exist is always it shifts all the time. Like you've got Tucker Carlson. I mean, some of his rhetoric today is he basically just sounds like Bernie Sanders, except he uses different buzzwords at this point.
That's what I was going to say. He sounds like a conservative version, like a right-wing version of Bernie. That's a lot of these right-wingers are like, oh, we need to have our security from the Muslims. Don't you care that brown people are taking over? Don't you care?
More specifically, well, we need to have the state come in and control the markets because automation is making our lives too good. We need to be like India and ban tractors because tractors are taking all of our agriculture jobs.
Hey, I'll be back.
Yeah, I think we should wrap this up now.
All right. So I've got a video coming out. It'll probably be out sometime next week. It's skeptics have all I'm going to say about it right now is skeptics have forced me to incidentally side with Marxists, and I'm not happy about it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I've got a video coming out. I'm going to rate what's his name, Andrew Yang, on how authoritarian he is.
But what I was going to say is after that video comes out, I think I'm going to take like a month hiatus because I'm starting to get like mental fatigue from uploading, and I've got to start uploading. You know, I got to put more quality focus on my videos because otherwise I'm just never going to be happy with anything I put out. So like, even when I come back, my videos are going to be much better. It's just, Bunny, can you mute yourself? Yeah, my videos are going to be much better when I come back from that. It's just that, yeah, they're probably going to take a lot longer between each upload because I'm going to make them as high quality as possible. So,
all right.
I'm going to really polish my videos when I come back from that.
Excellent. Anyone else got anything they want to show?
I have a blog coming out probably Monday on how the state affects mentally ill people. And let me tell you, it's not just guns. There's a lot more to it than that.
Well, one thing they make up mental illnesses, like ADHD.
Well, we just let his video come out, but we went over that earlier on the stream as well.
Yeah. Asia, you have a... oh, wait, he's gone.
Oh,
he's AFK right now.
I think he went AFK. He said he'd be back.
Alright, well, I guess we'll see you all next time.